If I was trying to explain week 2 in the NFL, I don't know. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Totally caught that on the first try, Grossi. And today we are going to be ranking the top 10 teams heading into week 3 of the 2024-2025 NFL season. And buckle up, because this is already going to get crazy, because week 2 was absolutely insane. You had massive upsets. You had the 49ers losing to the Vikings. You had the Cowboys losing to the Saints. The Seahawks are somehow 2-0. The Steelers continue to play awful football, but their defense is so good and they keep winning games. The Falcons beat the Eagles. Things are going crazy. And so to try and rank these top 10 teams, I don't know. Brandon Perna put the Saints at number 1, and I mocked him. I ridiculed him. I said, how could you be so foolish? And now, I am the foolish one. But yeah, this past week was crazy. Before we get to the top 10, I want to do some honorable mentions here. I want to shout out the Arizona Cardinals. They had a close game with the Bills in week 1, and then week 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. went off. Kyler Murray playing an excellent game. James Conner continuing to be a beast. Absolutely beating the pants off of the Rams. And if they continue to do well, I think they'll find themselves in the top 10 sooner rather than later. I also want to give a shout out to the Patriots because they did fight pretty damn hard against the Seahawks going into overtime. And then finally, the 49ers. I was going to put the 49ers on this list even though they lost still. However, with the loss of Deebo Samuel and all the injuries that they are facing, including CMC, I thought we just got to hold off for a second. And this also allows some new teams to enter into the top 10, which is just pandemonium at this point. And so starting off with number 10, I can't believe they're on here. You got the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, they're 2-0. It ain't pretty how they're doing it, but they're 2-0. After beating the Broncos last week, it was closer than they would have liked, but they got the W in overtime against the Patriots this week.
So this is the thanks I get for working overtime.
DK Metcalf had a big game. That offense came alive at the end. Of course, he had the blocked field goal as well, which really, really helped things. But it's the defense of the Seahawks that I'm really impressed with because, of course, the Patriots defense is going to play pretty darn well. But that Seahawks defense over the past 2 weeks has looked pretty damn good. Now, I'm not going to go out of the way and say, oh, man, the Seahawks are an incredible team right now. But they seem like a balanced football team headed with a strong defense. And when Kenneth Walker comes back, that run game should be better because that was absent this past Sunday. But the Seahawks are finding ways to win. Right now, they're taking advantage of a depleted NFC West in which you have the Rams and 49ers with significant injuries. And the Cardinals, they're an up-and-coming team. But right now, there is only one undefeated team in the NFC West, and it is the Seattle Seahawks. So because of that, I gotta give them some props. And they may be one of the worst 2-0 teams out there, but they're still 2-0. Then at number 9, you got the LA Chargers. The Chargers! When's the last time the Chargers were in a top 10 power ranking? They have a whole new identity with Jim Harbaugh, and it is on the ground. Joe Alt having a phenomenal game last week. Max Crosby was unable to do really anything. And a shout out to the Raiders for beating the Ravens, in which Max Crosby was very disruptive. Just goes to show you how good Joe Alt already is. That was the right draft pick. And then this past weekend on Sunday, Joe Alt was great again, but J.K. Dobbins. I am so happy for J.K. Dobbins. I loved when him and Gus the Bus Edwards were on the Ravens, but they were constantly getting injured, and JK has had a nice resurgence these past 2 weeks, and it's just been great to see. And the Chargers, they are establishing their identity pretty quick. Quentin Johnston even had 2 touchdowns, which is great for him. Hopefully he can develop into a great player. And Jim Harbaugh, he had to prepare for the Panthers this week.
Do you know how easy this is for me? Do you have any idea how easy this is? This is a joke.
And the reason I'm not super duper high on the Chargers just yet is because it is the Carolina Panthers. I can't give them too much credit, but they got the job done. They didn't have any stress winning that football game, and Bryce Young got benched afterwards. So I guess the Chargers are doing something right, or the Panthers are doing something horribly, horribly wrong. it's probably that one. But I gotta give the Chargers some credit, so they're number 9 in the top 10 power rankings. And Harbaugh, he seems to already have an impact on that team, and the direction in which they're going seems to be pretty damn good. So Chargers fans, I think it's okay to breathe now. Number 8, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just going to see how high I can put the Steelers, even though their games are just the worst thing to possibly watch. After beating the Atlanta Falcons in week 1 and not allowing a single touchdown, and also just winning via field goals, which the Commanders took note of this week, they went into Denver and their defense dominated again. Bo Nix didn't have a shot against that defense. TJ Watt is an absolute monster. And again, the Steelers offense isn't doing anything impressive. Justin Fields is playing solid football. He's not making any mistakes. And unfortunately, we were robbed of the Rust Bowl. But this team just believes in Mike Tomlin 110%.
And do you trust your king? Your men, my lord, will follow you to whatever end.
And it just goes to show good coaching and a strong defense, it's going to win you games in the NFL. It's not going to look pretty. It's not going to be an exciting game, but that's Steelers football. That's the reason they were able to go 5-1 in the division last year, and they give their division mates so many issues. So the Steelers, you're at number 8 because you're 2-0. What else is going on in your division? Nothing great right now. The Ravens are 0-2. The Bengals are 0-2. And the Browns, they won their game against the Jaguars, even though it was a very stressful second half. And so the Steelers, they sit atop their division just like everybody predicted. And Steelers going to Super Bowl. Number 7, you got the Detroit Lions. The Lions are going to be the only team on this top 10 that are actually going to have a loss. And there's a reason why the Lions are going to be on here. And that is that the Lions basically outgained the Buccaneers on every single statistic this past weekend, except for the score at the end. And the Lions had many, many opportunities. Of course, you had right before half in which they're trying to spike the ball and the field goal unit's running out. There's a miscommunication there. There's a 10-second runoff. They're unable to kick a field goal, which would have changed the trajectory of that game. Jared Goff did not have his best game, but Aiden Hutchinson, 4.5 sacks. Aaron Glenn called a great defensive game, and I think the Lions are going to be okay. The Buccaneers, they just showed up in these past 2 weeks. They've come ready to play. And so the Lions, in a losing effort, still have proved to me that they are a very good football team, especially in the NFC. And the NFC North, it's going to be interesting this season. And while it will be happiness for the Vikings and Packers after their win this week, the Lions, they just didn't have a great weekend.
This is fun. Are you having fun?
Of course.
And Eminem, are you having fun? 2 of us are having fun.
Number 6. You got the Minnesota Vikings. Why? 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 The Vikings are sitting atop the NFC North with a perfect 2-0 record.
I'm the king of the world!
Sam Darnold, after beating the crap out of the Giants last week, they were the heavy underdogs heading into this game against the 49ers, even though the 49ers haven't won in Minnesota since December of 1992. I didn't really think the Vikings were going to win that game. However, their defense played real well. Brian Flores already made that defense better last year, and now it looks to be even better this season. I know that week 1 was just against the Giants, but to beat the 49ers, even though they're a depleted squad, is impressive. And Sam Darnold, that 97-yarder to Justin Jefferson was absolutely beautiful. Sam Darnold is playing very efficient football right now. Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler ran the ball well. The most impressive thing of what the Vikings are doing is they're doing it without some of their top receivers, and they're also missing TJ Hawkinson. So the fact that they're able to win these games without those pivotal pieces is pretty impressive. I hate it as a Packers fan, but I gotta give the Vikings a lot of credit. Now, they're gonna be taking on the Strouds next week, which is gonna be another test for this team, and I don't know how long this Vikings magic is going to last. I hope it runs out soon, but until it does, I gotta give them their props, and they are sitting at number 6. God help us all. Number 5, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who came into Detroit and beat them at their own game.
And we now have a taste of lion. We've talked to ourselves. We've communicated and said, you know what? Lion tastes good. Let's go get some more lion. You just lost to your own game. You're outgunned and outmanned. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
Baker Mayfield continues to bake after having a flawless week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker was great once again. Chris Godwin playing a phenomenal game against Detroit. And similar to what we're talking about the Vikings, what makes this win so impressive is not only did they do it on the road against a tough opponent, but they did it down several defensive key pieces. And considering their defense played pretty damn well against the Lions, who we know can score at will, yeah, the Buccaneers are looking pretty good. While the Falcons and Saints were able to get the win and the Panthers are doing whatever, it's going to be really interesting to see what this NFC South is going to look like. The Saints are playing well, the Buccaneers are playing well, and Baker Mayfield is having this resurgence that started last season, and it's just a really good story. The only real concern I have about the Buccaneers right now is their lack of run game. Baker Mayfield was their leading rusher with 5 carries for 34 yards and also had a touchdown, but if they're able to figure out their run game, this is going to be a damn good football team. And again, it comes down to balance. Their defense is good. Their offense is playing well, even though Aiden Hutchinson had himself a day. If they're able to clean that up a little bit, because it's only week 2, I expect to see the Buccaneers in the playoffs, or at the very least contending for that NFC South title. And damn, it's going to be fun to watch. Number 4, I can't believe this is happening. You got the New Orleans Saints. I don't know. I have no idea. The Saints didn't make it into the top 10 just like the Vikings didn't last week because they just beat the Panthers. I was like, okay, yeah, they put up a ton of points against them, but the Panthers aren't a good football team. And then the Saints went into Dallas and beat the absolute crap out of the Dallas Cowboys. They made that defense look awful. They made that offense look awful. And Derek Carr is looking amazing. He's looking so good that Jerry Jones might be having some buyer's remorse after that game.
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.
Not only was Derek Carr great for the second week in a row, but Alvin Kamara, 4 freaking touchdowns, including 3 on the ground. Not only did Kamara have an all-timer of a game, but their offensive line is looking good. Their defense is playing really solid football, and the Cowboys just did not have an answer for it. I mean, we're talking about going deep into the second half, that it was the first time that the Saints didn't score a touchdown when they had the ball. That's how efficient that offense was. And while you can look at the Cowboys, and the jury is still out there because they beat the Cleveland Browns, who don't look the greatest, even though they got a win over the Jaguars this week, the consensus was the Cowboys were a pretty good team, and they were a very good defense last year. So for the Saints to come in on the road and decimate the Cowboys, usually where they play really well, unless it's against the Packers, I got to give them all the credit. On top of that, Clint Kubiak as their new offensive coordinator is a million times better than Pete Carmichael. Saints fans were talking about years how much they wanted Carmichael gone. He is now gone. He's hanging out with the Broncos, and you see how well that's going there. And so I'm happy for the Saints. I don't know how long this ride is going to last, but as of right now, I can't deny them any longer, and so they're sitting at number 4. Number 3, you got the Houston Texans, or the Strouds. The Texans playing on Sunday Night Football in a god-awful game. 21 accepted penalties, including double digits for the Texans, so that was a bit of a problem. But they went up against a very good defense in the Chicago Bears. That defense was giving CJ Stroud plenty of problems. However, Stroud was still super efficient, had over 250 yards, didn't turn the ball over. And the Strouds right now, they're on to bigger things than the moon.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
For the second straight week, the Strouds were the only team to win in the AFC South. The Colts, the Titans, and the Jaguars are still trying to figure it out. And right now, the Texans are looking like a pretty damn good football team. Their defense is well balanced. They were able to cause lots of problems for Caleb Williams, though the Bears' offensive line is not great. And for the offense, there's so many weapons there. Nico Collins had a good night. Stephon Diggs was clutch in some moments. And this team looks poised and ready to make a run. They don't look like the very best team on the field right this second, but the fact that it's week 2, their division is doing so poorly, and they are playing so well, I gotta give it to the Strouds right now. They're definitely in the top 3, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Strouds at number 1 before this whole season's over. Number 2, you got the Buffalo Bills. How about that rebuild season, huh? The Bills, they were able to roar back against the Cardinals in week 1 after a slow start, and the Dolphins defense, they got James cooked.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
What a game for James Cook. What a game for Josh Allen. And I know that Tua was injured, and that definitely sucked the wind out of that game. But I'm going to be talking about this game even before Tua got injured. The Bills' defense was giving Tua nightmares. 3 interceptions. I know 1 hit off a receiver, and there might have been a miscommunication on that second interception. But that defense was making the Dolphins' offense absolutely miserable. The pass rush was getting there. Von Miller has been playing well these past 2 weeks. And then looking at the offensive side of the ball, not only did James Cook have a great day, but Josh Allen is just able to do absolutely crazy things with the football. He took over week 1 against the Cardinals, and he had some phenomenal plays against the Dolphins here. And so while the Bills aren't having the greatest passing attack, the fact that they can rely on a great running game and their quarterback to just get the job done, I imagine as the season goes on, those receivers are going to get even more comfortable with Josh Allen because they got a whole bunch of new guys there. Khalil Shakir, of course, had the big game, but we'll see what Coleman can contribute here, Curtis Samuel, and see if that team can get even better as the season goes along. But right now, Bills, I got to give you your props on a short week going into Miami and getting the win. You're at number 2. And finally, at number 1, they can't keep getting away with it. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. And listen, whoever plays the Chiefs, whether it's turning the ball over or committing dumb penalties, you can't keep them in the game.
When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
The Bengals, after suffering an embarrassing defeat to the New England Patriots, came into Arrowhead and they were ready to play. The defense was playing well. Mahomes was looking kind of pedestrian and not doing anything special, had 2 turnovers. But the way the game ended, it's just something we've seen over and over again. And they're not even getting big games from guys like Travis Kelce. Isaiah Pacheco is hurt right now. Carson Steele fumbled. But the Chiefs just find ways to win. And as for that pass interference, yeah, you can't give them any wiggle room. It's gonna get called. And the Chiefs were able to capitalize. And looking at the Bengals, there was opportunities for them to win that game. Their last series, they could have held on to that football and they could have driven down the field. But the Chiefs defense was able to hold and they were able to get the ball back. And we've just seen this play out too many times. Patrick Mahomes is too good to give him any time and give him any wiggle room. And whether it's 4th down conversions that they convert multiple times, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs are going to find a way to win the game. And even though it was a very close game, I got to give the Chiefs props. They're doing this with a ragtag group of wide receivers. Like I said before, Pacheco is hurt, but they're still finding ways to get the W. And so the Chiefs, using their experience, defeating the Cincinnati Bengals once again. We are all at the Chiefs' mercy, and unfortunately, the beat just keeps on going on. And so just to recap, at number 1, you got the Chiefs. 2, you got the Bills. 3, Texans. 4, Saints. 5, Buccaneers. 6, Vikings. 7, Lions. 8, Steelers. 9, Chargers. And 10, Seahawks. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who should be on this list? Who should be off of it? Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. We're trying to get to that gold play button by the end of the season. We'll be hitting 700,000 subscribers this week. I greatly appreciate you all for the support and tuning in. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pat, go.